Okay then. Welcome to the council meeting of the 28th of July 2020. I'm mute, so I'm on. So the council's meeting follows the standing orders, and these are available on the council's website. I remind everyone present that the rules for public participation are 3E to 3K, and the rules for disorderly conduct are 2A to 2C. First item on the agenda is apologies for absence. To receive apologies for absence and acceptance. Do we have any apologies for absence, Clerk?
I have 2 apologies for absence. I have Councillor Sims, who is at work, and Councillor Best. I don't know the reason for Councillor Best's apologies. If Councillor Purdue-Huran could possibly update me.
Personal reasons, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I've also received very late apologies from Councillor Monica Money, who doesn't feel very well at all.
Oh dear.
How about, is Councillor Moskwa on the call?
I am. Yeah,
thank you. Sorry, you didn't have a tick against your name. Are we accepting those apologies, councillors?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Okay. Declarations of interest. To receive any declarations of interest. Does anybody have anything to say? There's a lot recorded in the committee minutes, which I'm sure we can take as read. But if you wish to speak, Councillor Lewis.
Yes, I have a non-pecuniary interest to declare in respect of item 8A and appendix D7C, and then item 10C and appendix appendix I5, and item 10F and appendix L8, and my interest in all those items is that I'm a director of Bombers Skateboarding CIC.
And Councillor Leach declares the same if she's present. Excellent. And Councillor Mosford declares as the chairman of the Bingham Community Parks project.
As always, yes, across all the minutes to do with the parks, and in particular item 20 on this agenda.
And various of the
Councillor Williams. Declare an interest in anything in relation to Win Hill as being a coach down at the rugby club. Even though it's on the minutes, but I don't think there's a specific item. Thank you.
Well, I think we've all declared correctly in committee minutes, so we'll all repeat that any previously made declarations. Any further from councillors?
No.
Okay. Councillor Purdue-Horan moves, and I seconded by me, a motion to change the order of business on the agenda to make public participation. Currently item number 7, the next item.
Yeah, I move that, Chairman.
Yeah, Councillor Purdue-Horan is moving that. I've seconded it. Should we have a vote on that then, please?
Sorry, I'm on mute there. Councillor Bird, are you in favour of changing the order to move up public?
Yes. Yeah, that's fine.
Is Councillor Leach on the call? I didn't check that.
Doesn't appear to be.
She's not. Right. Councillor Lewis?
Yes, I'm in favour of
that. Councillor Moskwa?
Yes.
Councillor Purdue-Huran?
Yes.
Councillor Shelton?
Yes.
Councillor Stapleton?
Yes.
Councillor John Stockwood?
For.
Councillor Maureen Stockwood? For. Councillor Wallace?
Yes.
Councillor Williams?
For.
Thank you very much, councillors. Yeah, you can proceed with the changed order.
Right. So it's questions and comments from members of the public. Members of the public to ask questions, make observations to the town council. Okay, if we begin by members of the public who wish to ask questions or make comments, saying their names so that I can make a list, and then we'll divide the time or proceed through people who indicate. We've got Norman Mees is, I think, raising his hand. We've got anybody else wishing to say the name? Kath Valence. Anybody else wishing to speak?
Yep.
Who's yep?
Yeah, sorry, I'm not showing, obviously. Tony Fox.
Tony Fox. Tony Fox. Got Mr. Mees, Kath Valence, and then Tony Fox. Anybody else?
Sue Hull.
Sue Hull. Okay. Anybody else?
Pat Harland.
Pat, was that Pat Harland? Hartland. Any other public speakers? Hello?
There's a few people just coming in onto the meeting now.
Okay, so we're taking the names of people who wish to speak in the public session. I'll start with the ones who've indicated so far, and then we'll ask again when we've got through those who've indicated so far then. The first person to indicate was Mr. Mees. Norman Mees, you got something you wish to ask the council or
yes,
comments
thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have in front of me the monitoring officer's report, which is an appendices. In that report, it says, advice on interpretation of the town council standing orders or how it conducts its business. These are matters for the town clerk as the proper officer. It carries on to say, differences of opinion within the town council or adjudicate on interpretation of its standing orders. These are matters for the town clerk. It further says that addressing interpersonal matters or adjudicate on procedural issues, these are matters for the town clerk as proper officer to deal with. In view of that, do you now recognise that the town clerk is the person who takes a leading role in these matters, and also in view of the fact you ignored the town clerk's advice on the meeting, on the agenda of the meeting of the 16th of June 2020, that the fact that the agenda you were using was the wrong agenda, do you recognise that the whole meeting on that date is now null and void? There's two questions there.
Okay, so no, the meeting is not null and void. The meeting is perfectly legal. And secondly, the monitoring officer sent a number of letters. That's only the last one. And a previous one, she reminded councillors to have regard to Standing Order 26D, which repeats the view that the chair of the role of the chairman the chair in a council meeting. So it is the case that she's now writing to say that, having received quite a lot of correspondence from councillors trying to sway her opinion, that she's no longer prepared to give advice to Bingham Town Council. And that's unfortunate, but that's where we've got to. And with regards to pointers, the validity of the meeting, then the meeting was perfectly valid. Thank you very much. Kath Valence.
Thank you. Actually, my questions were along a similar line. Not only do I have Appendix B for this agenda, I also have all the correspondence with regards to the monitoring officer and the advice given prior to the last meeting. It actually does confirm in the emails that her advice on the agendas was based on the mayor confirming that he had complied with the requirements following Councillor Wallace's request to call an extraordinary meeting. Now, she goes on to say that it wasn't something that she checked. She later goes on to say that her advice does not replace the advice of the proper officer, and where there is a conflict, the proper officer's advice should prevail. So these are the emails that you were just talking about. So again, she confirms that it's the proper officer that actually makes the decision. So how do you now, with that information, believe that your agenda was legal?
Well, it's great that you and your father have the similar opinions, but it remains the case that there are a series of emails that have been referred to and a series of letters, and it remains the situation that it was Councillor Wallace who requested advice from the monitoring officer. Councillor Wallace's opinion was sent by him to the monitoring officer requesting her advice, and I followed the advice received from the monitoring officer. With regards to subsequent statements by the monitoring officer, there's been, well, that's great. You've selected one or two that happen to meet your personal predetermined views, and thank you for sharing your opinion. But
I have only commented on the emails that I have. There are only 2 of them. They're not pre-selected. I haven't omitted anything from any other email. As I see it, it raises 2 issues because it's calling into question the validity of the last agenda. Now, the problem there is, if it is deemed illegal, as the proper officer said, it's open to legal challenge. Now, there were 2 motions there. One was the motion of no confidence, which was moved into private and confidential. I would like to know if that is now going to be heard on a further agenda and put back in the public domain so we can hear the discussions on that. And also, I've got a query with regards to the £400,000 loan and £50,000 from reserves for the rugby club. Where does that leave them in that position if there is a legal challenge now over this, the legalities of the last agenda? Is that now going to be put on another agenda so that it actually is not open to legal challenge and that we don't fail an audit?
In order for a meeting to be well, you'd have to arrange a judicial review of that of those decisions and prove in a court that decisions were invalid or unlawful. So that hasn't happened. It's although you're making these statements, it's extremely unlikely that that such a thing would actually happen. So all this scaremongering is just you and your father pushing a particular view, and it is predominantly ex-councillors who are coming to express these views. But we now move on to ex-councillor Fox.
I've got one more question, actually. Sorry, I haven't finished
Okay,
yet.
then one more from ex-councillor Valence. Here we go.
Thank you. On the final page of Appendix B, the monitoring officer notes that there's some interpersonal issues and that these extend beyond councillor to councillor relationships and have led to complexities in the relationships with the town clerk and the deputy clerk. She goes on to say that if in this case, given the crucial nature of these roles, it's only likely to add to the difficulties. I want to highlight the bit here where she says the crucial nature of these roles. Obviously, you've put through that you're proceeding with this restructuring and you're looking at making redundancies. Can you explain how you could be looking at making the clerk and the deputy clerk redundant when the monitoring officer herself has said how crucial these roles are?
Well, the monitoring officer's letter says that she's not giving advice and she won't be giving any further advice. So we don't see that letter as particularly a letter of advice. And you've picked out 1 or 2 words again, which support a particular view that you created the staffing structure. It doesn't work. And now you want to make views continuing, even though you've now left the council.
I would suggest that you are also being selective about what information you are actually reading and interpreting, making it fix with what you want, rather than looking at the advice being given and following that so that you do not actually make people redundant when there is no case to do so. Thank you.
Okay, well, that's part
Mr. Mayor, before you move on to the next question, I wonder if I might interject. Mr. Mayor, you have introduced my name into this conversation, and I'd like to just interject at this point before you take more contributions from the public, with apologies to members of the public who are waiting. I want to be absolutely clear, and I want everybody to be absolutely clear here. At no stage, in no letter, did the monitoring officer suggest that my actions were incorrect. She used the word irregular, and I'll remind you at the last meeting I set out with absolute clarity the standing orders to which I referred, and you overruled both me and the property officer. Let's be absolutely clear about what the monitoring officer said, not your interpretation. Thank you very much.
Excellent, and I can absolutely assure everyone
Correct,
there
Mr.
are
Mayor.
no investigations into my conduct
Sarcasm.
whatsoever, and there are no complaints upheld against me. So everything that you've said, all of your complaints, all of which you've submitted to the monitoring officer, have been totally rejected because they are utterly fake, and you're now upset that all the claims you've made against me have just completely failed because
Mr.
they're
Mayor,
false from beginning to end, and you just went nowhere whatsoever. So we can debate this as councillors all night long, but I think the public want to speak, and so the next speaker is ex-councillor Fox.
Doing your office an enormous disservice. This is not the point of the conversation. Now,
you have had an opportunity to put every single one of your complaints against me, and they've all been rejected.
I am making to you is that I set out with absolute, including 26D and why it was overruled by 26A and the legislation. You overruled me and you overruled the proper officer. Everything I said at that previous meeting was correct by reference to us. That is the reality, and I was not overruled by the monitoring officer, and she never suggested that anything I did was incorrect. Let's be absolutely crystal clear.
And you've absolutely made it, you've written to us all saying that the purpose of your actions was to publish a series of allegations against me. You have sent those allegations to the monitoring officer and they are going absolutely nowhere. There are no investigations of me and there are no complaints upheld against me. Ex-Councillor Fox.
That is utterly irrelevant.
Well, I mean, the whole point of your actions was to make these allegations. You've repeatedly said that's what you were doing. And your allegations have been completely dismissed.
Let's not conflate two things here, Mr. Mayor. Let's not conflate two separate things here. I set out an agenda for the last meeting. I did it correctly and within line with the standing orders of Bingham Town Council. The proper officer of Bingham Town Council made it quite clear at the meeting that my actions and those of Councillor Lewis were absolutely correct. And it's now been demonstrated by the monitoring officer that those actions of both myself and the proper officer were correct. Anything other than that is irrelevant to this conversation. Can we just be clear about that?
The whole purpose of your meeting, Councillor Wallace, once again, very clearly, was to move your motion, which concluded a series of allegations against me, which are totally false. And you have no support whatsoever from the monitoring officer in anything you said against me.
Were my actions incorrect, Mr. Mayor? Did the monitor?
That's your version of events. Ex-Councillor Fox wants to speak. This is actually the public speaking session. Ex-Councillor Fox wants to speak.
Okay, good evening. I've got a couple of questions, but before I ask them, I'm reading, or I have read, like I suppose everyone else, the reply from 4 or 5 page reply from the monitoring officer, and it seems to me that what she's doing there is trying to bring together everything that she has learned and been told about the issue that's being discussed. And I would suggest to you, Mr. Chairman, that anybody outside of this group reading this particular response would concur, as she says quite clearly, and I won't go into other examples, these are matters for the town clerk as the proper officer. I think this is the fundamental thing that comes through here. I think what may have been said before, which I'm not privy to, which has been referred to in some of the comments, is, by the way, this is her bringing together everything that she has learned about this. So I cannot see that any right-minded person who is not in any way involved in this would draw a conclusion that you have actually just drawn and reiterated to the rest of the group here. But anyway, I won't detain you all with anything else on that. The two questions I've got, one is a small one in a way, and I'll finish with that. But the main one is the one to do with the key, or one of the key elements of the members' code of conduct, namely openness. Because it seems to me that at times this body looks more like a secret society than a town council. I've tried to follow what happened at the 29th of October 2019 extraordinary P&R meeting that was regarded as confidential, but there is nothing on the BTC website over the following months to cast any light on what was discussed under confidential business at that meeting. You could be discussing a lunar landing for all I know. As this meeting and what followed appears to be a forerunner for later disputes, the public should be able to view what this issue was and how it panned out. Instead, successive meetings referred to just confidential notes and recommendations. Please, with the council, make this information available to the public because it is very germane to everything that has been discussed in recent times. Otherwise, the public has no idea what its council that it voted for is actually considering. So that's my main question. The other one is just a short one. I cannot understand what, perhaps I should know this, but I don't understand the actual English of this. In attached to some meetings, there is, and I imagine this is a long-standing practice. Sorry, there is a page at the end which is sometimes used, which says blank page left intentionally to mirror official signed minutes. Would somebody please explain to me what on earth that means? Thank you.
Well, I believe it's a measure done to make the minutes line up, because when the papers are printed off back to back, it comes out that some papers are mixed into the back of the previous report, and therefore councillors get lost in the paperwork. So that's the main point of that point.
Can I just,
regarding
just before you go on to the main thing,
the meeting of
Mr. Chairman, sorry,
October the 29th.
Sorry,
was about. Okay.
No. I just wanted to say something. It's only a minor thing, but apropos that point that you've just referred to, is it the case then that you cannot view as a member of the public on the council website any sign-off signatures for meetings that have been approved? Is that the way of things, or is there a signed copy of minutes that have been approved that resides on the websites? It's not.
You want to see our signatures on the website? No, I understood that the signed copies are kept as paper copies because they're signed in ink. Well, that was until the pandemic began. So perhaps that's a process we can look at for moving digital during the current extraordinary situation. With regards to the meeting, the October the 29th, it was the meeting regarding personnel matters. The council continues to hold that personnel matters are confidential business, and that is not changed from when you were a councillor. We don't discuss private matters relating to employees in public meetings, and that's always been the position of the council. So, moving on to ex-council.
Hang on a minute. Okay. Sorry, I have to interrupt you there. I'm not asking or suggesting that highly confidential personal information should actually be put out there. But I think when you've got so many, I've got them here, references to these confidential notes and recommendations that are not specified as to what they relate to, the public, particularly under the current circumstances, the public has a right to know what the actual matter is that is being covered by those notes. Right. So there's a distinction there, Mr. Chairman, between the personal confidential material and what that discussion was all about?
Well, the council made its decision, and those minutes have been treated as confidential. With regards to the public interest in that meeting, it is all generated by a series of allegations which have been completely dismissed as false. So we now move on to ex-councillor Hull. Ex-councillor Hull.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got two questions, if I may. At the meeting on the 16th of June, a member of the public asked a question about block voting on the council. And Mr. Mayor, you replied with, and I quote, 3 councillors doesn't form a majority on any of the committees. Well, as you well know, Mr. Mayor, that statement is not true. Every committee of the council has a majority of Conservative councillors, except the emergency committee. So planning is 5 Conservatives, 2 others. Staffing is 4 to 3, policy is 4 to 2, recreation is 5 to 2, and P&R is 4 to 2. Community is 4 to 2. Would you now admit that you lied to the lady who asked the question, plus all the other members of the public who attended that meeting, and apologise?
Is that both your questions?
No, do you want the second one?
If you wish, go ahead.
When a Freedom of Information request was made for a copy of the staffing review report, all the confidential information was redacted before the report was released to the public. On the meeting of the 16th of June, I asked a question regarding recommendations in the report, and I quote, there would appear to be a need for a different type of role, broader and more senior in terms of knowledge, skills and experience. This statement was not redacted before becoming public. Therefore, it is not confidential. Therefore, you need to apologise to me for calling me out on a matter of confidentiality when in fact it was not confidential. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Well, on the second point, I haven't dealt with any of the Freedom of Information Act that have been dealt with employees. I would have said that the whole of the report was dealt with entirely as by the council as confidential. The decision to release parts of it was being made by somebody else. And so that's I maintain that my understanding of the document is it's always been treated as confidential because it directly refers to individual matters relating to employees. I don't know the contents of any of Freedom of Information Act responses that you've received. With regards to 3 not being a majority of 14, I maintain that that is mathematically correct. With regards to committees, you've said that 5 people are Conservative. You're referring to the fact then, by definition, that you're implying that Conservatives always vote to get one way and the opposition always vote the other way. You never seem to refer to the fact that the opposition might at some point ever see a point of view that we make. And so you're implying block voting by those who aren't Conservatives. But I don't think the points you're making are particularly something that I need to personally apologise for, as I don't deal with Freedom of Information Act requests, and it remains the case that 3 councillors are not a majority in a council of 14. Pat Hartland is the next person who wishes to speak. I'm not hearing anything.
I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
Very, very faintly, but please speak.
Yeah, I must apologise. I was just signing in. I have no wish to speak.
Right, I'm sorry for my misunderstanding. Right, I've gone through all the names of people who have indicated they wish to speak. Are there any further indications of wishing to speak now from members of the public?
Yes, please, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, ex-councillor Costello. Anyone else? No. So the last person to speak under the public session is ex-councillor Costello.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You spent a lot of money on staffing and whatever, and I'd like to know on staff review and external consultants for HR purposes. And I'm asking, how is this good for Bingham, for staff morale and the services the council is supposed to provide to the council taxpayer? You're saying that redundancies are part of the reorganisation. Is that the only part of the reorganisation, or are there any benefits to the residents of Bingham? And could you tell us what they are? As I understand it, we're still waiting for a car park we're still waiting for a lot of the brilliant Bingham stuff to be implemented. There's been no councillor training, despite the fact that should have been within 6 months of the last election last May last year. And we have this wonderful country park and lake that no one can access. Can you tell us exactly how much more money you're proposing to spend on the redundancies and recruitment of further staff, and what benefits the council taxpayer of Bingham is going to have with all of this nonsense that you're proposing?
Well, I wasn't aware that it was nonsense, but generally speaking, in the last 3 years, staff costs have increased by around 35%, and the actual increase in staff costs for £42,000 is greater than the actual increase in staff, actually increase in the council tax. So the council is facing a very difficult situation whereby we're placing increasing costs that we're having, and that leaves us in a position whereby, in order to fund projects, we're now having to look at using reserves and borrowing, cutting costs elsewhere, and asking the community to be more involved in events, and asking groups that lease land from us to do more grounds maintenance. So it's currently the case. Staff costs are increasing dramatically, and as a responsible council that is responsible for the way that spending of council tax, then it's important to all the residents of Bingham that we look into making sure that we have the right staffing structure. It isn't the case that redundancies are guaranteed. That's the whole point of a consultation that you're aware is going on, and I make no prejudgments of the outcome of that consultation, because that's the whole point of consultation. Just as we're saying, there's no prejudgment on the outcome of the consultation on the rugby club. With regards to all the things you say this council should be doing, I'm sure you were very disappointed that you didn't achieve any of them when you were mayor. But as the rest of us who are still on the council, we are continuing to work to deliver the things that Bingham people want. We're happy to say that we're currently consulting on community facilities. Later on the agenda, there is the announcement of the continued spending of over £100,000 on play areas, as the second play area will improvement works will be progressing. We have other projects regarding investment in pieces of land to secure them for the future of Bingham. We are looking to improvements on the CCTV, the linear park bridges, open space security, and old courthouse facilities. We are continuing to work on our programme of improvements and to maintain and improve the facilities and services that we offer. It's been a very difficult time since you left. There has been a global pandemic, and one of the things we've done during the pandemic is allocate our reserves, some of our reserves, to helping others within the community. It is a situation that whatever plans we had as a council, we've done our best to adapt in these very difficult and trying new times to new ways of working, and to look at ourselves and say, look, there's no point in sitting on reserves right now. Let's offer the money to helping community. And that's what the council has been doing. With regards to the lake, I welcome this amazing revelation that you're now in favour of the lake, given that you've repeatedly criticised it for so many years, saying it was a rubbish puddle.
I fought for that lake. Councillor Purdue-Horan wanted 3 puddles. I fought for the lake. You've got a very
okay. So as I'm sorry, I thought you reverted to it as a rubbish puddle that was nowhere big as the lake that you always wanted. But now it's being built. It is a building site. The developer is building a very large development to the north of Bingham. That has gone through the planning system. The planning system, Bingham is a consultee, not a decision maker. It would never be the case that a town council meeting made the decision on the lake. You had personal friends who were borough councillors at the time who could have raised your views if you'd so decided, but it's that decision on the planning application was made, and we are where we are. The site is under development. The builder is developing the site.
Get your facts right.
Well, thank you for your continued abuse. I appreciate all the effort the ex-mayor puts into coming back to council meetings and shouting abuse at us all. That's all the members of the public, although I have to say the majority were ex-councillors just coming back to have a go. And now we move on with the rest of the agenda. Councillor Lee, you're an actual councillor. This is for public councillors.
May I make a final observation, please?
Yeah, well, go on then, but we've had more than 20 minutes, and again, I've been very generous to the members of the public to listen to everybody, but it's the case that you have to be very quick.
It's just a one-liner. You've spent a fair amount of time abusing ex-councillors who you see as the opposition.
Yes.
So it's a bit rich when you spend the time that you do, or you have done, in abusing people. You're complaining about people abusing you. You should be above that, Mr. Chair. You should be above that.
Who have I abused? You made your complaint against me. You made your complaint and it was completely rejected, wasn't it?
Mr. Mayor.
It wasn't rejected.
You've all made your complaints against me and they've all been completely rejected. And now you've come on,
read the report,
and abuse the council again.
Hang on a minute.
Because
Hang on a minute. Get control of yourself.
The process is now finished. I'm chairing the meeting and now we're moving on.
Chairman, I think you've got the wrong Tony there.
Move you on the agenda. Stop pulling people out for poor conduct. Because I can remember we all have the rules regarding disorderly conduct and I can apply them.
Mr. Mayor.
No, right. We'll now move on to the next item of the agenda then. Code of conduct, to remind councillors of the updated code of conduct. Well, you've all had it. It's Appendix A. Do we note that?
Agreed.
We note it.
Yes, please. Noted to be noted.
It's noted.
Mr. Chairman, can I make an observation here? It seems to me that item 3, the code of conduct, is linked to item 6, consultation, which is also the new model code of conduct put forward by the LGA, which is Appendix C. So why aren't we considering the two matters together?
Miss Councillor Lewis, I presume that was a point of information you're asking, and in response, the item 6 is a public consultation. It's not that new model code of conduct is agreed. This is item 3 is simply that at each year we remind councillors are reminded that they've signed the code of conduct and are reminded of its contents, along with the fact that we have to register of interest forms to complete those as well. So you'll have your chance to speak to 6, which is a consultation exercise, and that's not determined.
Reminded me, thank you. Bye.
Okay. So item number 4, register of interest forms.
You did rather dash past, Mr. Mayor, but I think it's just important to point out, and I'm guessing now that you do yourself accept the new code of conduct, and that it includes the reference that we will have regard to the relevant advice provided to you and the rest of us by the proper officer. Are you going to start?
Yeah.
Are you going to start doing that from now on? You overrode the proper officer at the previous meeting.
And the code of conduct also mentions the importance of listening to the monitoring officer when she's acting in her statutory duties. So yeah, there's a whole sentence to read there, and I appreciate that. We now move on to item number 4.
If I might just come back to that, Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind, if you're finished, thank you. Of course, it does say we should give due regard to the advice of the monitoring officer, and the monitoring officer advice was that the proper officer was the person who should take a deciding view on matters of conflict in the standing orders of Bingham Town Council. Do you accept now that the advice of the monitoring officer is the officer who should be, whose advice should be recognised in those circumstances? That was the advice of the monitoring officer.
Well, 1, Councillor Wallace, you're breaking up, and 2,
okay. Thank you.
The monitoring officer is doing a series of letters. You were fully aware that at the time that I spoke, we had the monitoring officer's advice and I acted upon it. And trying to reinterpret that based on picking selective sentences from one letter that somebody has decided to publish is not a coherent point of view. I remind you again, the key point, if you had a complaint about me, you could have made it, you have made it, and they've all been rejected. And that's the point you seem to completely not listen to
You
at
might
all.
disagree with me.
regards to
You might
what's
disagree
happening.
with me, but you might disagree with me. But I'm certainly not incoherent, Mr. Mayor.
Well, actually, you are, because you're breaking up. But apart from that, we've discussed item 3. We've noted it. We now move on to item number 4, register of interest forms. To remind councillors to review their register of interest forms. So we all asked to note that. Do we note it?
Noted.
Item number 5. Well, we've had a letter from the monitoring officer. Councillor Purdue-Horan, do you wish to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The proposals in front of us, 5A and 5B. 5A to agree actions to take the council forward. 5B to consider an independent governance review. May I ask, Mr. Mayor, or may I propose, Mr. Mayor, that we forward this on to the next Policy and Resources Committee meeting, which will then consider the items to take forward.
Mr. Mayor, I'll second that.
Thank you.
Proposed and seconded, we defer item 5 to the next Policy and Resources Committee. Any speakers to the what's been proposed?
Yes, I'd like to speak, please.
Councillor Wallace.
I fail to see why moving it off to Policy and Resource would help us to solve the issues that are quite apparent on the meeting this evening. I think it's probably a matter that's best considered by full council, and I don't see why we should defer that discussion tonight.
So I propose that councillor wish to speak?
Yes, I would.
Councillor Bird's the next verse I heard.
Yeah, Councillor Wallace is absolutely right. What will happen if it goes to PNR is PNR will make some sort of agreement, whether we do or not. It'll then come back to the next council. So all you're doing is delaying it. The reality is the letter says there is a way forward and we should be looking at these things to do it. And full council is the place to do it, and it's to do it now. Thank you.
Councillor Lewis. I think
yes,
you're indicating
can I echo what Councillor Wallace and Councillor Bird have said? I think trying to shuffle this off to a committee is not the way forward. I think that we should take a decision. I haven't seen what actions are being proposed or by whom, but we need to do something, because I see 5B is to consider an independent governance review. I don't see that the Policy and Resources Committee would have any real decision-making power to make such a decision, and I think that's something that ought to be done today, because it must be obvious to everybody who's taking part in this meeting that it's not just a bunch of what you might regard as dissident councillors who think that Bingham Town Council is frankly not fit for purpose anymore, but a large section of the public of Bingham also think the same thing. So I am opposed to the idea of just pushing this over to the Policy and Resources Committee, which will only achieve delay in something that is very urgently needed.
Right, any other speakers from the councillors?
Yes, I'd like to speak, please.
Councillor Leach.
Right, thank you, because you ignored me when I was saying, can I speak at the last time? And that was rude. The one thing I seem to remember sometime last year when I first took over at a meeting, I had to call you out for calling someone she. And you are now being, tonight I saw it on here, you were having a go at the councillors Costello. You called them all sorts. They didn't call you. Now, I think you should be apologising to them, and that's all I'm going to say. I am Disappointing.
I remind you, standing orders say that when speaking to a motion, you refer to the contents of the motion. We've had a vote. We've had a validly moved way forward. Well, a validly moved proposal from Councillor Purdue-Horan, seconded by Councillor Shelton. We now move to the vote.
Yep. Councillor Bird, are you in favour of item 5A and 5B being deferred and sent to P&R?
No.
Councillor Leach?
No.
Councillor Lewis? Councillor Lewis?
He's muted.
He's muted.
No, I'm not. Did you get that?
Yes, we got that, thank you. Councillor Moscow?
Yeah.
Councillor Purdue-Horan?
Yes.
Councillor Shelton?
Yes. Oh.
Councillor Stapleton?
For.
Councillor John Stockwood?
For.
Councillor Maureen Stockwood?
For.
Councillor Wallace?
Against.
Councillor Williams?
For.
Right, that's carried. Item number 6, consultation. The Local Government Association is consulting on a new model code of conduct which closes on the 17th of August. Usually when we have consultations, we encourage councillors to make their own individual responses. So I encourage you all to make an individual response and note that on behalf of the council. Any further speakers?
Can I ask a question, Mr. Mayor?
Councillor Purdue-Horan.
Thank you. Parish and town councils are not normally members of the Local Government Association. The Local Government Association is, I suppose, a trade body for upper tier councils, the county councils and boroughs and districts. The LGA is not, as I say, a town and parish vehicle. What's more relevant for town and parishes is the National Association of Local Councils, NALC, which is also the same moniker as the NOTS ALC, NALC. So are they consulting on a code of conduct, a model code of conduct for upper tier authorities, or are they asking town and parishes to contribute to this consultation?
It's my understanding that the Local Government Association sees NALC or NALC members as associate members, and that NALC is encouraging parish councils to participate in this Local Government Association consultation if they wish.
Okay.
With regards to individual councils, as the monitoring officer explained in her letter, adopt their own code of conducts, and we've got an opportunity here to participate in a discussion around a model code of conduct, and it's up to us whether or not, if that ever adopted, we choose to further update our current code of conduct to reflect the new model. So it's a consultation and councils can participate if they wish. I think NALC is promoting it to parish councils. It's my understanding. Any other understanding? Right. We note it then.
Yes, please.
That's noted then. We're now on to item 8, minutes. To approve and sign the minutes of the 9th of April 2020, the extraordinary meeting. Is it your wish that I sign those minutes?
I move.
Seconded by me. Do we need a vote?
Yes, please. Can I whiz through?
No, we're approving the minutes of the 9th of April then.
Thank you.
Anybody wish to speak before we go to the vote?
Sorry.
No, councillors haven't indicated they wish to speak.
Councillor Bird?
Yes.
Councillor Leach?
Yes.
Councillor Lewis?
Yes.
Councillor Moscow?
Yes.
Councillor Purdue-Horan?
Yes.
Councillor Shelton?
Yes.
Councillor Stapleton?
Yes.
Councillor John Stockwood?
For.
Councillor Maureen Stockwood?
For.
Councillor Wallace?
For.
Was that 4?
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Councillor Williams.
4.
Thank you.
Move on to 8B, to approve and sign the minutes of the 2nd of June 2020, the extraordinary meeting. Any speakers? I move it.
Second.
Councillor Purdy-Horan seconds it. Any speakers from the councillors? No?
Yeah.
We move to the vote then, please, on item 8B.
Councillor Bird.
Yes.
Councillor Leach.
Yep.
Councillor Lewis.
Yes.
Councillor Mosper.
Yeah.
Councillor Purdy-Horan.
Yes.
Councillor Shelton.
Yes.
Councillor Stapleton.
Yes.
Councillor John Stockwood.
4.
Councillor Maureen Stockwood.
4.
Councillor Wallace.
4.
Councillor Williams.
4.
Thank you.
Item 8C, to approve and sign the minutes of the 16th of June 2020. Do you have any speakers?
Yeah, I'd like to speak, please.
Councillor Wallace.
Thank you. I'd like to move under Standing Order 10A1, a motion to correct an inaccuracy in the minutes, please.
Yeah.
Well, okay, well, you have to say the...
I certainly will, yes, and if you'll bear with me. So it goes back to the conversation that we had at the head of this meeting this evening. I just want to make it clear that at the end of the paragraph preceding one, apologies, it simply says the mayor reiterated his earlier point that he was following the advice of the independent monitoring officer. I think that minute should read that the mayor overruled the advice of the proper officer, which was given above. At no point, as I've said already, were the actions that I took incorrect. The actions I took were described as it was, I think, an irregularity or something like that was the words that the monitoring officer used. The proper officer's advice was clear that the agenda published by myself and Councillor Lewis had been validly drawn up and should stand. If we need to follow the agenda, then any decision should be subject to legal challenge. That you overruled the decision of the proper officer, and I think that should be recorded on the minutes.
Really? Okay, well, you've moved a motion. I think actually it says reiterated because it's repeating a statement further up. And
are you suggesting that's actually incorrect, Mr. Mayor?
Well, earlier up in the sentences, the third from the bottom says the mayor responded, and then for some reason we have a running commentary on the mayor reiterating his earlier point. I refer you to your earlier email, which you sent me, telling me what standing orders says that minutes should actually record. And you will, of course, remember that you simply listed the points from standing orders, stating that minutes should simply be a list of the decisions made. So the fact that you now want a verbatim account of what you claim to be the validity of your actions, which has never actually been shared with me, is just you trying to your self-validation, to be honest. But it's for council to vote on. So
I think
we'll let council have a vote then, yeah?
Mr. Mayor, you're misunderstanding me. You're misunderstanding me. I'm sorry. You're quite right. The minutes should record the decision made, and the decision made was to overrule the advice you received from the proper officer. That's all I'm asking you to do. I don't want any commentary. I just want you to record the decision that you made.
So you want all of the other commentary removed from the minutes?
No. I want that final sentence to make it clear.
Well, that's not a decision of the council, is it?
So, Mr. Mayor, could I just finish, please? If you don't mind, really, stop interrupting people. You've just said to me that the purpose of the minutes is to record the decision that was made. And the decision that was made in the evening was to disregard the advice of the proper officer that the agenda I published was correct. That is a matter of fact. It's not opinion, it's fact. And all I'm saying is that the minutes should record that fact.
You've repeated. He sent us all an email telling us that the only thing minutes should record is the formal decisions, which
And
are
that's
resolutions.
decision.
There's no decision there. That is a block of narrative, and you are asking for the narrative to be removed.
Mr. Mayor, the decision was you overruled the proper officer. That's a decision.
The decision is that I followed the advice of the monitoring officer that she gave to you in response to your questions at that time, which you're quite clearly aware that I have, and that you've made all your complaints to the monitoring officer. And again, I remind you, they've all been rejected. So this constant claim that I've acted incorrectly is just your own personal views.
Mr.
If
Mayor,
councillors want to have a vote on the matter, we'll go to a vote.
You're
But
willing
it's
to have
appropriate for you to
on
keep
your
coming back
statement
and arguing with me.
You made a decision. You should record the decision. It's not a matter of you feeling deeply affronted by the fact that a complaint was made against you. The point of the minutes is to record the decision, and the decision was clearly to overrule the proper officer. What's controversial about that? What's difficult with that?
Well, the minutes have been written by the proper officer, so I don't see why she didn't record what you said, if that was what happened. But the proper officer has provided this set of minutes. So as far as I'm aware, either we'd be striking everything other than the decisions, which is what you previously said in an email to all councillors, or you're now picking and choosing points of the narrative that you want to have. I'm not going to have this process where you just keep coming back to me each time I make a point while I'm chairing the meeting. So other councillors now have the opportunity to speak on what you've moved. Do you actually have a seconder for this?
Yes, I'll second it.
All right, so it's moved by Councillor Wallace, seconded by Councillor Leach. Some amendment to the 16th of June.
Thank you.
I can't hear you, so I
I'm
can
sat
mouth
looking at
moving.
everybody's face from my computer. And some people smirk, some people smile, and some people outright laugh. And I'm watching all your faces.
I'll proceed with the vote now.
Can we have a recorded vote, please?
Pardon?
Can we have a recorded vote, please?
Okay.
All recorded.
Councillor,
Just touching the minutes, Councillor Stockwood.
I'll proceed with taking the vote now. So, Councillor Bird, are you in favour?
I support Councillor Wallace's.
Thank you. Councillor Leach?
So do I, because I seconded it.
Councillor Lewis?
Yes, I support it.
Councillor Moscow? Councillor Moscow?
You're muted, Councillor Mosfer. Councillor Mosfer's connection's been lost. Can we move on to the next speaker and give him a chance to get back into the meeting?
Yep. Councillor Perdue-Haran?
Against the amendment.
Councillor Shelton?
Against the amendment.
Councillor Stapleton?
Against.
Councillor John Stockwood?
Against.
Councillor Maureen Stockwood?
Against.
Councillor Wallace?
For.
Councillor Williams?
Against.
Sorry, my computer crashed there. I was trying to get off mute. If you saw the look of panic in my face, it was that nothing was working. I vote against.
Okay, thank you.
Surprise.
So that amendment has not been approved.
Right, with regards to the 8C minutes, just to be clear that the formal resolution written on page 9562 is the formal resolution we will consider at the end of the consultation. We're currently in a consultation at the moment, and we look forward to receiving the results when that period of 28 days is finished. So all those in favour, unless we have any further motions, then all those in favour of the minutes as written.
Can I just ask a point of clarification on that, Councillor Stockwood, with how the resolution, as you quite rightly point out, is not accepted until a further council meeting. Do you want that to come out, or do you want me to add the clarification under that as well?
I think just a little bit of clarification to
Yeah.
explain that
Yeah.
this is the resolution we're going to make if it's successful, a consultation, but we haven't quite got to that point yet.
Yeah,
I'm just
I'll do
making
that.
it clear. Okay.
Yeah.
So these are the minutes that I'm willing to sign. All those in favour, or well, actually, we'll move to vote now, please. Thank you.
Yes, let me just get myself organised for that. Okay, Councillor Bird, are you happy to accept the minutes with the clarification that Councillor John Stockwood?
No.
Councillor Leach?
No.
Councillor Lewis?
No.
Councillor Mosper?
Yep.
Councillor Purdue Haran?
Yes.
Councillor Shelton?
Accept the minutes, yes.
Councillor Stapleton?
Yes.
Councillor John Stockwood?
Yes.
Councillor Maureen Stockwood?
Yes.
Councillor Wallace?
No.
Councillor Williams?
Yes.
Thank you. The minutes will be signed in due course, subject to that amendment.
Item number 9, the Mayor's announcements. I haven't attended any events as the Mayor. I haven't been invited to any because there's a pandemic on, I'm sorry to say. But we now move on to item number 10, committee minutes. To receive and resolve to approve the recommendations from the following meetings. Generally speaking, unless the chairmans wish to speak otherwise, for each item, I will take the minutes as read. The chair of the committee will move any recommendations and I will second them. And then we go to the councillors who wish to speak on the recommendations from each set of minutes. So the first item is 10A, Recreation and Amenities Committee. We take the minutes as read. Is the council, does the chair wish to move the recommendations within?
Yes, I do, Mr. Mayor.
I'll second that. Do we have any speakers on the recommendations from Recreation and Amenities Committee the 21st of April? No. Do we need a formal vote? Or can we manage with just accepting that?
Has anyone any objection to any of the minutes, or can we proceed?
No. Happy to proceed.
Proceed. Okay, we've accepted the minutes. Well, we approved the recommendations from that meeting. Item 10B, Community and Environment Committee. We take the minutes as read. The chairman wish to speak? Councillor Mr. Stockwood.
Yes, there was quite a few recommendations that evening, but all are moved on to the next set of minutes, which we will come to soon.
Right, and that includes stuff about the Christmas fair?
And I second that proposal, Mr. Mayor. That we accept the minutes.
Right. We'll go on to any speakers then on item 10B. No speakers. No. Do we need a formal vote?
Sorry, I'm going to sneeze. My apologies, sorry, I was going to sneeze there. Any comments to make, or can we accept those on block?
Accept.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Policy and Resources Committee. We take those minutes as read. We now move on to the chairman moving the recommendations.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm pleased to move the recommendations of the Policy and Resources Committee of the 19th of May 2020.
I'll second them as Vice Chair. Any speakers to the
I wonder
recommendations?
if I could just ask if we are going to receive an update on the recommendation, the Conservative group's recommendation to make members of staff redundant.
Well, all employment matters have been dealt with in confidential business, so I'm sure that there'll be the items that you're referring to are on the agenda later on. That answers the point of information requested. So any other speakers? No. We move on block all the recommendations from the 19th of May then. Right, thank you very much. Recreation and Amenities Committee, the 9th of June. We take those minutes as read and the recommendations within it. Does Chairman wish to move them?
Yes, I wish to move them as read from the Recreation and Amenities Committee on the 9th of June 2020, please.
Okay, I'll second them as I was present. Any speakers to the recommendations from the Rec and Amenities Committee on the 9th of June? No. No one wishes to speak. They're accepted on block then, those recommendations. Thank you. Community and Environment Committee, the 23rd of June 2020. We take those minutes as read, and the chairman of the committee wishes to speak.
Yes, there are a few things I'd like to say about these. There were a lot of recommendations in that earlier meeting, which were all addressed by the staff and moved on. It's worthy of note that the late summer plants were actually planted and are now in full bloom, and I hope people are appreciating that. On the Christmas lighting quotations on that set of minutes, a final meeting has been held and agreed the options to proceed with Christmas lights. We want to make as good a show as possible this year, and that's all in hand. With the costs of the stage, electrics and PA for the Christmas 2020 fair and the Bingham community event the following day, we are all anxious that these should proceed, and it's hoped that that will go ahead in spite of different indications that come from both government and RBC, it being their land. But if it goes ahead, it must be with suitable insurance provision, and that any costs incurred in deposits made can be reimbursed or transferred to the following year, if at all possible. That's, I think we need to protect the budget as far as that goes. The storage of the tables, the different tables keep being changed. They've gone from one set to another and then another, so that is still an ongoing thing. And it should be noted that permission for the August has not yet gone ahead, or been given. So I propose the minutes as they are read. Do I have a seconder?
Right, so we're actually approving the recommendations, the committee meeting on the 23rd of June. Does anybody wish to speak to the recommendations of that meeting? No? We accept them on block then?
Second, Mr. Mayor.
It was seconded already.
Right.
We approve them on block, and nobody wishes to speak to them. Policy and Resources Committee, the 7th of July 2020. We take those minutes as read, and the chairman of the committee move the recommendations.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to move the Policy and Resources Committee recommendations of the 7th of July 2020, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do you have any speakers? I second that as Vice Chair of the committee. Are we any speakers who wish to speak to the recommendations from the 7th of July?
Yes, I'd like to speak, Mr. Mayor, please.
Councillor Wallace.
Thank you. I'm sorry that I couldn't make the meeting on the 7th of July. I was actually on holiday, but Councillor Lewis, I think, attended the meeting in my stead. The point I'd like to raise is the report of the recommendations from the Pension Scheme Working Group. And I raise the point because at the working group meeting itself, the chair of the working group, Councillor Pablo Haran, used his casting vote quite correctly. I mean, I've got no issue with that at all, to pass those recommendations of the working group. So the working group was split 50-50 on whether or not we should close the current pension arrangements to members of staff, with the motion going through, or the proposal going through on the casting vote. So I think it's worth drawing that to the attention of full council. I'm sure it was drawn to the attention of Policy and Resource on the 7th of July, as I asked Councillor Purdo Haran to do, and I thank him for doing that on the day. But I do just want to make that point for the meeting this evening. In my view, and I'm sure Councillor Purdo Haran will put the contrary position in a moment, in my view, I think it's incumbent on our council to try to make sure that its staff have the opportunity to enjoy a reasonable income and some a decent standard of living in their retirement. And I think the local authority pension arrangements allowed for that to happen. We live in uncertain times now, and I would like to be able to give some certainty to our employees in the future as much as we do in the past. And I'd just like to make the point just now, the recommendations there in front of you, I didn't prevail in the day, and I don't expect to do so this evening, unfortunately.
Mr. Mayor, can I speak?
Of course you can, Councillor Purdew-Horan.
I'm sure Councillor Wallace didn't mean to give any impression to the contrary, but just to clarify, we are not closing the pension scheme to existing members of staff who are members of the local government pension scheme. That continues with no changes. Of course, you've seen what the recommendations are. We will continue with a new scheme underwritten by Her Majesty's government for new starters or for members of staff who have not yet joined a pension scheme and may choose to do so in the future. Thank you.
And apologies to the meeting if that was the impression I gave. I didn't intend to, Councillor Purdo Haran. I'm well aware that current members of staff can remain in the existing scheme, so apologies if that was if my words didn't come across clearly there.
Any further speakers from the committee regarding these recommendations? Do we need to vote?
Can I request a recorded vote, Mr. Mayor, so that we do have that decision on record?
Okay.
This is item 10F. Now, and if there are any other speakers, speak now, so that we'll say your name, so that before we go to the vote.
I've got Councillor Leach's hand up. I don't know.
Oh, it shouldn't be up. Sorry.
Thank you. Right, I'll take the vote to accept the minutes of P&R from the 7th of July. Recommendations, sorry, thank you. Excuse my dog barking in the background. Councillor Bird.
Yes.
Councillor Leach.
Yes.
Councillor Lewis.
I'm not actually sure that I am entitled to vote one way or the other, because I have an interest in one of the recommendations. But if it's okay, then I support. I approve the recommendations. Yes.
Right.
Although it includes 1175 bombers,
which you've declared an interest in.
Which I have. Yeah.
Thank you. Made a note of that. Councillor Mosper.
Yeah.
Councillor Purdew-Horan.
Yes.
Councillor Shelton.
Yes.
Councillor Stapleton.
Boy. Yes.
Councillor John Stockwood.
Yes.
Councillor Maureen Stockwood.
Yes.
Councillor Wallace.
For the reasons I've given, I'll abstain on the point.
Councillor Williams.
Yes.
I leave you to carry on a second, Councillor.
Would you like? Should we take a break there? Shall we just take a break?
Councillors requesting we take a 5-minute break.
Yep.
Agreed.
Yeah. Okay.
Break time then. 5-minute break, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, councillors. Should we now return to the meeting? Have we all returned from the break? Do you have a name call? The clerk?
Councillor Best. Sorry, Councillor Bird.
Yes, I'm here.
Councillor Leach.
Yeah, I'm here.
Councillor Lewis.
Yes, I'm here still.
Councillor Mosbert.
Present.
Councillor Purdue Haran. Did I hear Councillor Purdue Haran?
Present.
Emma's work.
Councillor Shelton.
Present.
Councillor Stapleton.
Present.
Councillor John Stockwood.
Present.
Councillor Maureen Stockwood.
Present.
Councillor Wallace.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Councillor Williams.
Present.
Yep, thank you. Okay.
Now move on to item number 11. Oh, no, we don't. We're on item G, planning committee decisions.
Mr. Mayor,
Can you we'll take all the minutes as read and we just note that, Chairman of the committee?
I move.
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, me too.
And me.
There's no vote required, so move on.
We accept G, H, I, and J.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Accept any recommendations in those planning committees, and we note the decisions that have been made.
Right.
Item 11, the subcommittee notes. To receive and resolve the recommendations that are made on the 14th of July. Councillor Purdue Horan, do you wish to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to move the unanimous decisions or recommendations by the Resilience Subcommittee held on Tuesday, the 14th of July. I just wish to bring to councillors' attention that things have moved on since our meeting, and our offer to assist with supporting the town centre recovery has been greatly appreciated by those involved in wanting to take part in having sort of outdoor continental style cafe environment. However, we were hoping to get started on the 31st of July, but two businesses that were hoping to join in have said that they would like a little bit more time to think things over and sort out staff. Meanwhile, at the same time, whilst I move the financial recommendations, particularly in paragraph D and paragraph 5, I've just had an email earlier on, just before the meeting, and that the hired furniture, we can get the same furniture cheaper from a local hirer in Radcliffe-on-Trent, which will assist basically with the costs. So the figures that are on this paper, which I'm happy to propose, are actually higher than what we need to spend. That's basically what I want to say. So that will be very helpful, and hopefully we can catch some of the summer. Thank you.
Right. Any other speakers? Do you have a seconder first of all?
Yeah.
I'll second it.
Mr. Chairman, may I speak to that, please?
Certainly. Councillor Lewis.
Now, yeah, with regard to paragraph, is it 4B? There's a reference to potential community events planned by BCE Group. Now, I haven't been asked to give certain assistance to BCE Group because I understood that a series of concerts was planned for starting on the 7th and 8th of August. And there was some question about funding for that and which bands could be booked, etc. And I thought that that was going to come up under Appendix Q. But I wondered whether Councillor Purdue-Horan was going to speak about that, because he's been also very much involved in the idea of having these events in the Market Square, and time is running very short to organise them. Thank you.
Shall I respond, Mr. Mayor?
Are there any other speakers? You're going to provide a point of information then, Councillor Purdue-Horan?
Well, actually, yes, I'm grateful to the comments that Councillor Lewis has made, because he's brought my attention to paragraph B, which includes that we would approve hiring equipment from Robin Hood Hire of Caythorpe, when in actual fact now that that is not required. So I'd like to remove that from the recommendation, because we do have a better quote, as I said, from Radcliffe-on-Trent. So Mrs. Hutchinson has been able to source that for us. With regard to the events in August that the BCE group are hoping to organise, that is still, I believe, being planned and subject to Rushcliffe Borough Council approving use on the marketplace. It will go ahead. So we're happy to support that.
Yeah, if I can come back to you, Councillor Purdue-Horan, I've just found it's actually under paragraph 4D, not 4B. And there was some concern expressed by Mrs. Hutchinson about the adequacy of the funding that is available to book the bands that we would like to book. I'm sure we would all like to book. You have to bear in mind that these people haven't been able to perform in public for some time, and to ask them all to turn up and play for the price of a pint it is a bit unrealistic. And I wonder if the whole question of the funding of these events, which I understand there will be eight events, could be revisited and not put back for a long time, because there is not sufficient time in order to actually arrange the events if the money isn't there. Thank you.
Sorry, can I ask you to suspend standing orders and let me speak, because my name's been mentioned quite a few times.
Hi, Liz.
Is it Councillor's wish that we suspend standing orders and allow Mrs. Hutchinson to speak, or ex-councillor Mrs. Hutchinson, as I'm referring to people?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Thank you. I understand what Councillor Lewis is asking. We've had some conversations with regards to some entertainment, which he refers to the word concerts. Concerts aren't actually allowed yet. It's acoustic music that's allowed. And it was just some of the acts that may have been suggested were just out of their price range. At the moment, my understanding is our price range is the budget that we had originally for VE Day minus any deposits that we had paid. Until we've got all the costings in regards to RBC and approval, we don't know an exact figure yet. I am under the impression that if we do need some extra money to provide something and it's what council agree with, there may be some scope to come back and get some more. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Right, we now reinstate standing orders. Councillor Perdue-Horan, you've moved that. Did Councillor Lewis actually second what you're moving?
No, I did.
Councillor Leach is seconding what you're moving. You any further speakers? Now move to the vote then. Sorry, who was that?
Just saying accept, Mr. Mayor.
Right, well, we now need to go to a vote then. Do we have a formal vote on this, the clerk?
Yeah. Councillor Bird, do you accept the notes and the amendments that Councillor Perdue-Horan has proposed?
Yes.
Councillor Leach, yes.
Yes.
Councillor Lewis.
Yes.
Councillor Moskva.
Yep.
Councillor Perdue-Horan.
Yes.
Councillor Shelton.
Yes.
Councillor Stapleton.
Yes.
Councillor John Stockwood.
For.
Councillor Maureen Stockwood.
For.
Councillor Wallace.
Yes, for.
Councillor Williams.
For.
Thank you.
Item number 12, to review the use of virtual meetings. Councillor Perdue-Horan, do you wish to speak to this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors will recall at an earlier meeting when we introduced or our first virtual meeting, I think, that we would review virtual meetings before August. So this is obviously the perfect time to review the use of virtual meetings, and you won't be surprised that I propose that we continue to use virtual meetings for the foreseeable future until it becomes obvious that we can go back towards the chamber again at some time in the future, but I don't see that very soon. So I propose that. Thank you.
Yeah. Seconder?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Yeah.
Councillor Wallace. Any speakers?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, can I just say that I think that meeting via Teams has worked pretty well, and I basically agree with Councillor Perdue-Horan, and I don't see any reason for changing the format. So yes.
Okay. Do we need a formal vote on this, clerk?
I'll just run through it. I mean, the guidance at the moment is that we remain on virtual meetings, and it's also to be noted that there is no mix and match available. We either meet in person as a council or we meet remotely. There's not an option to do a mix. So just to confirm that. Anybody? In terms of Councillor Bird, are you happy to continue with remote virtual meetings?
Yes, and I think we should carry on with this until the government says otherwise.
Yeah. Councillor Leach.
Yeah, because I think it's common sense just at the moment with what's been going on.
Councillor Lewis.
Yes, and I would say that we really don't have any choice anyway.
Yeah.
So.
Councillor Moskva.
Nothing to add. Agree.
Thank you. Councillor Perdue-Horan.
For.
Councillor Shelton.
For.
Councillor Stapleton.
For.
Councillor John Stockwood.
For.
Councillor Maureen Stockwood.
For.
Councillor Wallace.
For.
Councillor Williams.
For.
Thank you, councillors.
The meetings calendar. To confirm the meetings calendar until the 30th April 2021. Do you want to speak to this, Councillor Perdue-Horan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wish to propose the updated calendar, which I've taken up to the end of February, so we can also review it again before Christmas. So if there are any future amendments to be made, we can look at it then. So I move the amended partial calendar up to the end of February.
Could I
Do you have a seconder?
Yeah, I'm happy to second that, but could I just ask for the point of clarification, if you don't mind? There is a footnote that says that the above calendar of meetings is a guide only and may change during the period of the Coronavirus Act. Is that normal? I don't think we normally do that, do we? Because we have got a system of substitutes in place, and it seems to work reasonably well to me. I'm always a bit jumpy about changing the dates of meetings, if I'm honest with you, because we've all got busy lives and we've all got various other things that we have to adhere to, not least for council colleagues who are on Bingham, Rushcliffe Borough Council and Notts County Council. So I would really like us not to move meeting dates if at all possible.
Right. Mr. Mayor. Point of information, Councillor Purdue-Horan.
Yes, obviously it is well established practice that that a qualification is added to anything that is set for future months. It's well established in the senior councils. Councillor Wallace can be assured that if there are changes made, it's always because something is forcing that decision to be taken, and if at all costs it can be avoided, then that is obviously the first option. But every now and again something can come across that you've not planned for, or just came out of the blue, and so it sometimes can be a sensible decision to rearrange a meeting for whatever reason, and we just need that qualification. But basically, for most of our meetings, I think we generally stick to the plan.
Yeah, we do. Okay, that's fine. Thank you. I'm happy to support the dates.
Right. We have any speakers to the actual proposal? Business. So the business has been moved and seconded.
Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Leach.
Does that mean that our Tuesday nights like this are not going to change? Unless there's a real exception to why?
The meetings of virtual meetings will continue, yes.
On a Tuesday night?
Most of the calendar meeting, I'm pretty certain the calendar meetings are on Tuesdays, yes.
Yeah, so that won't change unless there's a real emergency.
Pretty much.
Right, that's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Okay, well, there you go. Do you need a formal vote on this?
Yeah.
I wouldn't have thought so.
Sorry, I was on mute there. Unless anyone's got any dissent, no, please carry on.
Yeah.
All right, we accept the meetings calendar until the 30th of April 2021. Item number 14, humanitarian grant aid. To consider the applications from Bingham Town Football Club and Bingham Cricket Club. Councillor Purdue-Horan, do you wish to speak to this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors will obviously be aware we set up the humanitarian grant aid, and Bingham Town Council, as far as I'm aware, are the only town council of all the towns and parishes that have set aside £25,000 towards, as we've called it here, humanitarian grant aid to assist the community for those extreme circumstances that might have cropped up during the worst and continuing COVID-19 emergency situation. So far, in the 4 months or so that we have been involved in this initiative, we haven't been overwhelmed with humanitarian grant aid requests or assistance from individuals or individual families. Bingham has not seen the worst of the social effect that can happen, that has happened in other areas, mainly large cities perhaps. So you will recall at the last extraordinary council meeting, it was proposed by Councillor Gareth Williams that we sort of expanded our remit for this fund to assist clubs and groups who may need assistance. And we have received a couple of applications, and as you see on your agenda this evening, we have one from the Bingham Town Football Club and one from the Bingham Cricket Club, and we're very grateful for the information that they've provided on the form. However, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that that we are, in principle, we are very much in favour of assisting the two clubs if it is absolutely critical for their needs. But we would just like to dig down further for some more relevant information. And I would request, Mr. Mayor, that this council meeting defers the decision pending further relevant information and authorises the Resilience Subcommittee to meet at an appropriate time to consider such information to see whether we're in a position to assist them. I'd like to move that proposal. Thank you.
Do you have a seconder?
Yes, I'll second that.
Anyone who wishes to speak?
If I could make...
Yes, please, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Williams.
Yes,
Councillor Wallace, then Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I think I'm supportive of Councillor Pardal-Hadan's suggestion, but I think just as a point of clarification, will the Resilience Committee be coming back to full committee for the recommendation before those funds are released? And I suppose that the second one is, and forgive me, but I've read through the documents from the cricket club and they've set out the loss in 3 separate documents, but I can't see from the claim how much they're actually asking for. I had assumed it was the full amount of the loss, but it's perhaps a point to clarify, Councillor Pardal-Hadan. Thank you.
Councillor Williams next to speak.
I would actually like to propose an amendment to the proposal that at the moment that we propose to give 50% or a percentage to help these two sports clubs. There has been stated in Councillor Pardal-Hadan's statement that it has been 4 months of the COVID pandemic where a lot of these clubs have struggled with no activity, nothing happening, no matches. Often they've had to suspend membership fees, which is a major source of income for them, because again, families can't spend that money, and they don't think it's fair to ask them for money for when there's no sport going on in their clubs. But of course, they've still had outgoings, as stated in their applications, for stuff that they've had in order to continue. I think that by doing this, by helping them now with something and then asking for some further information for a rest of this percentage, and I would suggest the rest of the 50 is then for them to come back, because they've already sent in the applications as part of what has been asked, and was asked of them to do these applications for grant aid funds, and now as a council we're going back to them asking for more information, where I would have liked for them to have had that question given at the appropriate time, so we could have decided in order to help them quicker. So that's why I would like to propose the amendment. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, point of clarification, if I may. Yeah, I'd like the council to give authorisation to the Resilience Subcommittee to make the decision after relevant information is collected for us to put us in a position to make a decision, with the with the encouragement that it is our wish to be of assistance and not to be difficult. But of course, councillors are very welcome to attend the resilience subcommittee, even if they're not on it, to assist in the discussion. But so that we don't have to wait till it might be early October for the next normal full council. I'd rather that we were given leeway to basically, have a look at these applications rather quicker than that, with obviously a quicker decision.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
Hello.
Councillor Leach.
Can I just say I'd like to second Councillor Williams' amendment, because this is unfair for those people that have already given you the information you've asked for. Why not help them now and then get them to give you that rest of the information afterwards? Because as Councillor Williams said, these are people that are struggling. These are groups that are looking after your children, our children, their families. Why make them suffer? Why make them wait? So I second what Gareth says.
Thank you.
May I say, Mr. Chairman, that I'm not against these applications at all. I'm very sympathetic to both the football club and the cricket club, and it is a fact that if this is put back to the resilience subcommittee, and the resilience subcommittee doesn't have the actual power to sign off the money, then it's going to be put back to October the 13th, which is really far too late to save either of the clubs if they're suffering to the extent that they say they are. So I think that perhaps what Councillor Williams says is the way forward.
Any other speakers?
Yeah, could I just?
I think I would also support the idea, if it's possible, that if the resilience subcommittee decides that there is sufficient information to justify the whole amount, that should be paid then rather than wait until October. And I would have thought that perhaps the way to do that would be for this meeting to actually authorise the money in two tranches, as Councillor Williams suggests. The second to be paid in the event that the resilience subcommittee approves the second tranche, and that would, in my view, amount to an approval of the whole amount, subject to further, so that it wouldn't be necessary to go back to the full council in October. We could do it at the resilience subcommittee. I would appreciate a bit of guidance from the clerk as to whether that's a correct approach to the problem.
Clerk has indicated she wishes to speak.
Yes, just 2 points of a mayor. Councillor Lewis has pointed out that the resilience subcommittee does not have executive making powers to determine the level of grant. It would need to come back to full council. And also, secondly, certainly a member of the cricket club is, I believe, in attendance on this call this evening, so he may want to speak to this matter.
Is it your wish, councillors, that we suspend standing orders and let Mr. Maynard Mason speak?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Maynard Mason, do you wish to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, sorry. First of all, can I just say thank you very much to the council for considering both our and the football club's applications. I had quite a long chat on Friday with the town clerk about, I'm guessing, some of the things that you might want to know, in terms of where we stand at the moment, and obviously what's happened to our season. And without kind of trying to rattle the can or anything like that, I mean, I think the toughest thing for us has not really been the fact that membership and so on has been missed, but obviously for us, we're in a slightly unique position that up until 3 weeks ago, we hadn't played a single game, senior or junior, and our match fees basically really go towards our square maintenance, which, as I'm sure you're all aware, is very different to the actual sort of pitch maintenance and green maintenance at Butfield. It's our most costly thing as an item on our accounts. So just to say, really, thank you very much, first of all, for considering us. We'd appreciate any help in the short term, and we thought we'd try and illustrate, to answer another council member's point, we thought we'd try and illustrate clearly what we'd lost so far this year, to the application as realistic and as kind of honest and upfront as possible, really. And I'm happy to answer any questions that the council might have.
Got 5 raised hands, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, well, we're always discussing out during with suspended standing orders. So, who has actually recently raised their hand? Does the clerk have a raised hand?
But sorry, I will lower my.
Excellent.
Thank
Councillor
you.
Leeds, is your hand raised deliberately?
Oh, I've clicked mine off.
Okay, that's okay. And Councillor Shelton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The point I was going to say is that part of Councillor Fitzpatrick's motion, we actually did request authority for that committee to actually give the meeting an authority to make that decision.
Couldn't hear a word of that, I'm afraid, Andrew.
Mr. Maylard Mason, I think it would be helpful if you switched off your microphone while other people are speaking, because we're getting a lot of feedback from Councillor Shelton. It seems to be going round and round a little bit.
He's done it, John.
Councillor Shelton, do you want to repeat his point?
Yeah, the point is that the Councillor Preenhorn was actually, within his motion, asking for authority for the Resilience Committee to be able to make the decision on the grant. So in this particular case, we'll be granting them authority to make the decision, whereas they don't probably normally have delegated authority. We're delegated in this occasion to them so that the decision can be made at the next resilience meeting and not have to go to full council for approval.
Yes.
Perhaps I can come back on that, Mr. Chairman. That's really is the whole point, is that we can't actually do that, which is why I'm proposing to frame the resolution so as to say we approve these payments in full in 2 tranches, the first of which is to be paid immediately, and the second which is to be subject to the approval of the Resilience Subcommittee. So it's us who's making the financial decision, not the Resilience Subcommittee. And I think that would, unless anybody has another idea, would avoid any irregularity in the way in which it's being done. But we can't. I don't think we can just authorise the Resilience Subcommittee to make the payment.
Yes, we can. It's the law.
How it's done.
The law says that if we decide as a council to delegate something to a committee, whatever anybody else has said about that committee, that delegation exists. We are the council. We are the decision makers. The law says if we decide to delegate, then that is delegated. And law makes it very clear that we are allowed to delegate to committees and subcommittees if we make a formal decision to do so. So if we make a decision to delegate to a committee, That is what is the position of the council, and that is backable in law, and you won't get a judicial review to override that. With regards to what you've already decided,
I'm afraid we'll have to agree to differ on that point, Mr. Chairman, because
I think you should go on a training course, Councillor Lewis, because I'm quite clear on what the law is. Item number 10 of the minutes of the 7th of July, we said that it was agreed that the group should complete the form and then include information on how COVID-19 has affected the income for the group, which has been provided. But we also asked for details of any other grants that the group has received relating to COVID-19. So have we received information we got from the groups about what other grants they've received? Anybody? Is that the clerk or the Mr. Maylard Mason? Have you provided information about what other funding you've received to help you deal with the consequences of the COVID-19 on the club?
Mr. Chairman, you have got this information. It's contained in the applications.
I've asked a question, Councillor Lewis, so I'm just talking to Mr. Maylard Mason now. Thank you very much.
Right, I'm really sorry, Mr. Mayor. I didn't hear the end of your question there. I apologise.
So there's been a number of support for Sports Club from Sports Foundation, and there's also been grants coming down from government.
Yep.
And you've provided information to the council regarding those amounts, then, yeah?
Correct. Yeah, we put on the application form. We received a grant from the COVID-19 Community Fund for £560, which allowed us to basically to provide additional coaching for new members who had contacted us during the lockdown period, and allowed us to buy some technical equipment to assist with coaching. So that was a grant we've had from the county council specifically for that. Sorry, I should say.
Right. And the grants that came from government, they went to the sports club, did they?
Yes. Yeah, they're unrelated to the cricket club.
All right. So, and the football club have they? I mean, I know you're not as part of the football club, but the document I've got in front of me is only the grant application form. Was there an additional information from the football club around what grants they've had?
And if you look at, Mr. Chairman, if you look at the last section from the bottom of page 1 of the form, it says list any donations or grants that the association, club, etc. has applied for or received in the last 12 months and to what purpose they will be used. The football club said they haven't applied for or received anything. The cricket club said they'd had 560. So you've got the information. There's no need to ask the question again.
Mr. Mayor,
I'm reinstating standing orders, and councillors not coming back to me and telling me what I can and cannot say in the meeting. Mr. Councillor Lewis, mind your conduct. If I have to say it to you again, I'll remove you from the meeting. The clerk, did we receive any information from the sports club regarding the amount of funding that they've received?
No, I haven't received any update from the football club, but I'd also be minded to point out there is an item 19 that we may want to consider before we make any decision related to the football club.
Right, well,
Mr. Mayor, may I speak?
Mrs. Stockwood, you swear to speak for the first time in the debate?
Thank you. I've had my hand up. Is it registering with anybody? Because I've had it up several times.
Yeah, you've got, Maureen, you've got a little yellow hand on the left-hand corner at the bottom.
Good, good. But it appears that, you know, I haven't been answered before. But anyway, I have to say I did not get these papers from the cricket club. And so I'm acting blind. Also, I have at this point, I'm going to make the point that Jane Best did not get any papers until yesterday for this meeting. And, you know, we can't act blind, but I'm having to. I've no idea. I gather from what I have received from the football club, they want 3,500. What does the cricket club need, please? what's the figure they're asking for?
The figure that's on the form is £4,814, but that's an analysis of the loss. It doesn't actually specify what's been asked for. I've actually got my hand up to Councillor Stockwood.
Right, thank you.
Can't see the full list of councillors because there's so many people in the meeting. So if you have the agreed procedure is you say your name.
Okay. That's fine. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I kind of dread to say this. We all appear to be in agreement here that we want to help both the football club and the cricket club, but this seems to be falling into an unnecessary and unnecessarily nasty debate when we're all seeking to do the same thing. I think Councillor Lewis's proposal was an attempt to be helpful here, and I think it is a helpful proposal irrespective of your interpretation of the law. Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure what the financial regulations say, but it does strike me that if we as a full council make a proposal in principle that this is what we would like to do, then that gets us over any uncertainty. Now, I'm happy to be advised by the proper officer in the off chance, however, though it might be, the motive might be that I might be wrong in that, but I think Councillor Williams's proposal is eminently sensible, that we give 50% of the money just now, and to protect ourselves and to make sure that the Resilience Committee can make the payments, we simply take the action proposed by Councillor Lewis, which I think gets us there. But there should be no argument in that. Why are we falling out over this? I mean, there's no need for any nastiness in a point like this, is there?
I'm sorry, I don't know what you're talking about. We have any other speakers?
We're the only person in the room then, Councillor Stockwood, but I'll let that pass.
Do we have any other speakers then? Well, then we've had an amendment moved by Councillor Williams, seconded by Councillor Leach. We now go to the vote on the amendment. Clark?
Okay. Councillor Bird, are you in favour of Councillor Williams and Councillor Leach's amendment?
Yes.
Councillor Leach, yes?
Yep.
Councillor Lewis?
Yes.
Councillor Moscow?
Yep.
Councillor Purdue-Haran?
Reluctantly, no.
Councillor Shelton?
I would have preferred the original one, so I'm going to say no.
Councillor Stapleton?
No.
Councillor John Stockwood?
Against.
Councillor Maureen Stockwood?
Against.
Councillor Wallace?
For.
Councillor Williams?
For.
Right, amendment's lost.
Yeah.
Now move to the substantive vote.
Sorry about that, Gareth.
We now move to the substantive vote, which is to delegate authority to the Resilience Committee to make the decision once the additional information is provided.
Mr. Mayor, as we're talking about this motion now, can I ask a question on it, please?
You can speak to the motion, the substantive motion, yes.
Thank you. Is there going to be now a time frame for when we would want this information back in order for the Resilience Committee to look at the said information and make a decision? Because I would hate for it just to go and then get left and left and left, and then kind of bills stack up for the clubs. Thank you.
Well,
1, 2, 3.
Can I speak, Mr. Mayor?
Can I speak?
Councillor Purdue-Haran, yep. Then to Clark.
Well, as the chairman of the Resilience Subcommittee, Mr. Mayor, it would be my wish that we get on with getting sufficient information as soon as possible so we can have the Resilience Subcommittee meeting to move this item on. Absolutely.
Clark.
Yeah, sorry. In terms of the amended motion by Councillor Williams, can I just check the figures, please? Because Councillor John Stockwood, you said the vote was lost, but those in favour, I've got 6 to 5. Can I just check that, please?
Well, I've got.
So I've got Councillor Bird in favour, Councillor Leach in favour, Councillor Lewis in favour.
Yeah, Councillor Moskva and Councillor Wallace.
Yeah.
And who else? And Williams.
Yeah.
So the amendments was carried then.
Thank you.
No, hang on, I want to check this. So we've got Councillor Bird, Councillor Leach, Councillor Lewis,
right,
Councillor Wallace, Councillor Williams.
Yep.
And
Okay. So the
Councillor
amendment is
Moskva.
carried. So we're now discussing the
Councillor
amendment. Then.
Moskva.
Amendment is now the substantive motion. Do we have a vote on the substantive then?
Councillor Bird.
Assuming that amendment was agreed, I agree, yes.
Councillor Leach.
I'll agree with Rowan. As long as what was agreed at the first that Gareth suggested has passed, then I will say yes. If you're saying he hasn't, then I'm saying no.
It has passed.
Right, well, yes.
Councillor Lewis.
Yes.
Councillor Moskwa.
Yep.
Councillor Purdue Haran.
Yeah, there are some questions I have. Obviously, I'll
now voting for or against.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I don't even know what we're voting for because I don't know the figures.
The amendment has passed, and you're now voting for or against. So if you don't understand the question, you abstain.
Well, can I
I'm
just...
afraid
no, there is no more speaking once we go to the vote. We've discussed this before and the behaviour that was done before at previous meetings. You've had a clear letter from the monitoring officer. Once we go to the vote, you're voting for or against or abstaining. So which is it?
So I have to abstain, Mr. Mayor.
Right. Councillor Shelton.
Abstain.
Councillor Stapleton.
Abstain.
Councillor John Stockwood.
Abstain.
Councillor Maureen Stockwood.
Abstain.
Councillor Wallace.
I'll vote for.
Councillor Williams.
For.
Thank you.
Right.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That is carried.
Okay, we now move on to, that was a decision on both clubs. So we now move on to 15 invoices to approve the payment of invoices in excess of £2,000. Clark.
We have one invoice for payment, and this is from Compan for the prepayment before the start of the work to Wychwood Road. We were expecting a larger invoice, but they've just sent the first part of the invoice through. So the amount I'm asking council to approve is for £4,077.62 plus VAT. Are council minded to approve that?
Councillors wish to speak?
Yes, please.
So what? Okay, Councillor Leach, you're the first person to indicate you wish to speak.
Yeah. £4,000. What have we got for that £4,000? Basically,
it's for.
Curious.
Pardon?
It's just curiosity. What have we got that we're having to pay £4,000 out for?
It's for the equipment, the manufacture of the equipment, and they require payment as it comes into the country.
Okay, Thank you.
As I say, it was expected the agreement was a slightly larger amount, but they obviously haven't sent that second payment through as yet.
Okay, thank you, Sharon.
Excellent. Any other speakers? All those in favour of accepting this invoice then?
Councillor
15.
Councillor Bird?
Yes.
Councillor Leach?
Yes.
Councillor Lewis?
Yes.
Councillor Mosper?
Yep.
Councillor Perdue-Horan?
Yep.
Councillor Shelton?
Agree.
Councillor Stapleton?
Yep. Agree.
Councillor John Stockwood?
Agreed.
Councillor Maureen Stockwood?
Agreed.
Councillor Wallace?
Agreed.
Councillor Williams?
Agree.
Thank you very much.
To consider the internal auditor's report and adopting of the recommendations. Appendix U. Councillor Perdue-Horan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wish to propose that we accept the internal auditor's report and adopt at least one recommendation that we increase delegated expenditure up to £5,000, subject to the clerk in consultation with the chairman and vice chairman of the relevant committee. So we have community environment, we have recreation and amenities, and of course policy and resource committees who themselves are responsible for their budgets and their spending committees to assist with the flow of business between full council, increasing the amount from 2,000 to 5,000, subject to consultation with the chairman and vice chairman, will give that degree of I suppose additional scrutiny before full council considers items later on. So I move that.
Right. I'll second the wording that you've given. Any speakers? No?
Clark.
Do we need a formal vote?
Sorry, could I
just speak?
Thank you, Councillor Maureen Stockwood. Just a quick question. What about the other recommendations made in the internal auditor's report?
So for the matters arising?
Yeah, and the recommended actions.
Item 2, the budget monitoring reports are produced at the completion of each month, and financial regulations should be amended to include monthly monitoring to Policy and Resources Committee.
Yeah.
Item 4 is, in order to properly monitor the issue of invoices to hirers at the end of any free to charge period, all hirers should be issued with an invoice for each hire, even if the zero charge invoice is issued.
Yeah.
So those sound very reasonable recommendations to me. So if the business this is being moved is that we adopt all the recommendations along with the additional text regarding number 3, which is that the limit for payments to be authorised by council is moved to £5,000, but that is subject to consultation with the relevant chairman of the committee. Then that is each one of the matters arising identified by the internal auditor addressed. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Right.
Councillor,
so that's the full text of the businesses that have been proposed and seconded. Do we have any speakers to it? Councillor, the only person I've got now with a hand up is the clerk.
I'll lower that hand then, thank you.
Okie doke. So should we go to a formal vote on this one as it needs to be formally recorded? We've accepted the internal auditors. We've made a decision on each of the internal auditors' recommendations, Does that be relevant for our annual statements? Hello, Mark?
Yes, it is relevant for the annual statement. So yes, I would take a vote on that.
Okay.
Councillor Bird?
Yes.
Councillor Leach?
Yes.
Councillor Lewis?
Yes.
Councillor Moskva?
Yep.
Councillor Purdue-Haran?
Yes.
Councillor Shelton?
Yes.
Councillor Sims? Oh, sorry, my apologies. Councillor Stapleton?
Yes.
Get my ruler in the right place. Councillor John Stockwood?
For.
Councillor Maureen Stockwood?
For.
Councillor Wallace?
4 yes.
Councillor Williams?
4.
Thank you.
We now move on to item 17 to consider the assertions in the annual government statement. Does the clerk require me to read them all out?
I would, yes, I need you to read the assertions out individually, please.
These are the annual government statement assertions 1 through 9 on page 4.
Yes, please.
The council is being asked to assert that we have put in place arrangements for effective financial management during the year and for the preparation of the annual accounting statements. We have maintained an adequate system of internal control, including measures designed to prevent and detect fraud and corruption, and reviewed its effectiveness. We took all reasonable steps to assure ourselves that there was no matters of actual potential non-compliance with laws, regulations and proper practices that could have a significant financial effect on the ability of the authority to conduct its business or its manage its finances. We provided proper opportunity during the year for the exercise of electorals' rights in accordance with the requirements of the accounts and audit regulations. We carried out an assessment of the risks facing this authority and took appropriate steps to manage those risks, including the introduction of internal controls and/or external insurance cover where required. We maintained throughout the year an adequate and effective system of internal audit of the accounting records and control systems. We took appropriate action on all matters raised in reports from internal and external audit. We considered whether any litigation, liabilities or commitments, events or transactions occurring either during or after the year end have financial impact on this authority, and where appropriate have included them in the accounting statements. Trust funds, including charitable, in our capacity as the sole managing trustee, we discharge our accountability responsibilities for the fund's assets, including the financial reporting and, if required, independent examination or audit, which is for trust funds, which we don't have any of. So, but apart from that, I've now read to you each of the assertions you're being asked to confirm, and we now have speakers on that item. Does anybody wish to speak?
I'm happy to take questions on the testing the assertions.
Okay, does anybody wish to speak? Can't see any hands going up. So do we need a formal vote on each of these parts, or can we proceed with them A to E en bloc?
We need to go through them individually.
Oh.
Okay, so 17A, to consider the assertions on the annual government statement. We now move to the formal vote as nobody has indicated they wish to speak. Can we have the vote, please?
Councillor Bird, are you in acceptance of assertion 1?
5 yeses.
5 yeses?
Yeah.
Sorry, what do you mean 5 yeses?
He means 4 for A. Move on to the next person, please.
What I was trying to do was speed it up by saying yes to all of them, but yes to A.
Oh, it's 4 yeses, right, sorry. Councillor Leach.
I'll do the same as Rowan, so yes for all of them.
Councillor Lewis.
Yes.
Councillor Moskva.
Yep.
Councillor Purdue-Haran.
Yes.
Councillor Shelton.
All en bloc.
4.
Councillor Stapleton.
Yep. 4.
Councillor John Stockwood.
4.
Councillor Maureen Stockwood.
For.
Councillor Wallace.
I'm abstaining.
Councillor Williams.
For.
For. Are you happy for me to just take that one set of votes then? With the exception that for number 9, as Councillor John Stockwood has pointed out, we do not have any trust funds.
Yeah, happy with that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So are we now, were we taking that for A, B, C, D and E?
Well, I wasn't originally, but we are now. Sorry, I was taking it for all the assertions, 1 to 9.
So are you taking it for A, B, C and D and E now?
That's
what. Or are we now doing B now, or have we done all 5?
No, we're now doing B.
We're now doing B.
Yeah.
We are doing B. Okay.
B. Can we have the vote now for, well, it's anybody who wishes to speak to B? Oh, we now move to the vote on B then, please.
Right, Councillor Bird.
Yes, I think.
Councillor Leach.
Yep.
Councillor Lewis.
Yes.
Councillor Moskva.
Yep.
Councillor Purdue Haran.
Yep.
Councillor Shelton. Councillor Shelton.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Stapleton.
For.
Councillor John Stockwood.
For.
Councillor Maureen Stockwood.
For.
Councillor Wallace.
Yes, I'm for that.
Councillor Williams.
For.
Right, I'll evidence that. Thank you.
C now? Does anybody wish to speak to C? This is to approve that to sign it. Right, no speakers have indicated. We now move to the vote.
Councillor Bird.
Yes, I think.
Councillor Leach.
Yes.
Councillor Lewis.
Yes.
Councillor Moskva.
Yeah.
Councillor Purdue Haran.
Yes.
Councillor Shelton.
For.
Councillor Stapleton.
For.
Councillor John Stockwood.
For.
Councillor Maureen Stockwood.
For.
Councillor Wallace.
I'm abstaining.
Cudden.
Abstain.
Councillor Williams.
For.
Thank you.
17D, to review the annual accounting statement. You've all got the papers in front of you. Does anybody wish to speak? No, we now move to the vote then on 17D.
Councillor Bird.
Yes.
Councillor Leach.
Can I please abstain because I don't know anything about accounting.
Okay.
And I'd rather not say yes if I don't know anything about something.
Okay.
So I'm abstaining.
Got that recorded. Thank you. Councillor Lewis.
Yes.
Councillor Moskva.
Yep.
Councillor Purdue Haran.
Yep.
Councillor Shelton.
For.
Councillor Stapleton.
Oh, for.
Councillor John Stockwood.
For.
Councillor Maureen Stockwood.
For.
Councillor Wallace.
Yes, I'm for.
Councillor Williams.
For.
Thank you.
Now move on to 17E, to approve the signing of the annual accounting statement. Does anybody wish to speak? No, we now go to the vote then on to approve the signing of the annual accounting statement.
Councillor Bird.
Yes.
Councillor Leach.
Yes.
Councillor Lewis.
Yes.
Councillor Mossberg.
Yeah.
Councillor Purdue-Haran.
Yep.
Councillor Shelton.
For.
Councillor Stapleton.
Oh, 4-4.
Councillor John Stockwood.
For.
Councillor Maureen Stockwood.
For.
Councillor Wallace.
Yes, I'm for.
Councillor Williams.
For.
Thank you very much, councillors.
18, to note the exercise of public rights and publication of the unaudited annual governance and accountability return will commence on Monday, the 3rd of August and conclude on Monday, the 14th of September 2020. That's to be noted, so we accept that. We might move on to item number 19, which is bad debt. To consider the write-off of bad debt for the year end, 31st of March 2020.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry, in relation to that, first of all, apologies for my grammatical wrong use of the right. We have a bad debt relating to the year ending the 31st of March 2020 to the football club, and that relates to £3,067 plus that, and that was for their portion of and contribution towards grounds maintenance.
So the request is that we write that debt off.
Yes.
Right, do we have any speakers?
Can I just ask why we're writing it off?
Because the it was written off the previous year. The football club have been in dispute with regard to their contribution towards grounds maintenance and who was actually responsible ultimately for the grounds maintenance. It's a historical point of contention that the football club contribute towards the maintenance of the pitches. For the past 2 years, we've taken on a contractor who's taken on that work, and we bill the football club accordingly to the original agreement. And for the past 2 years, they have not paid the invoice, despite attempts for them to pay the invoice.
Can I ask, is it a legitimate invoice then? And we're going to have the same problem this coming year? We raise an invoice and look to write it off at the end?
Well, the club now have their own equipment to maintain their pitches.
Yep.
May I speak, please, Mr. Chairman?
Councillor Lewis.
I was just going back to Appendix S, which is the football club's application for capital grant aid.
Yeah.
Which says we are seeking a grant of £3,500 to cover his cost, i.e. the groundsman, for the 5 months from April. But
sorry, can I just ask you?
I haven't paid.
Orders, you have got the wrong club.
Oh, so
terminology you're using is wrong, and that will make a decision on what you're saying in effect. It's Bingham Town Sports Club that you invoice, not Bingham Town Football Club.
My
things.
My apologies, Elizabeth.
Okay. Right. Well, that answers my question.
Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Purdue-Haran.
I'm not aware that this item has come before Policy and Resources. It's not an insignificant amount of money, and we have just gone through a whole load of votes on annual governance and accounting. I think we do owe it to the public that we enter into agreements and contracts, and at least this item should be discussed at committee before it comes before with a recommendation to full council. And there may be perfectly legitimate reasons for us to consider, but there's been no paper with this. It's just come on as an item at this full council, And I don't think it's right for us to make an instant decision this evening. And I would suggest, Mr. Mayor, that we defer it to Policy and Resources at the next meeting.
I would actually support that, Councillor Purdo-Haran. I'm slightly concerned that we might be making a judgment like this, so I would agree with that.
And I'm the same, Tony. I agree with you.
I agree as well.
Can I just point out that all bad debt needs to be written off at full council?
That may be the case.
Yeah.
At a suitable full council, but I would suggest tonight is not the time.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I think I agree with that as well. I'm afraid.
It's
It's I don't know about anyone else, but to me, £3,000 would be a lot of money for me.
And first of all, and as well, my apologies for stating it was the football club and it was the sports club, as it was correctly pointed by Elizabeth.
Just to be clear, it may be the right decision, to be honest. I'm not saying it's the wrong decision. I'm just saying I don't understand the decision based on the information I've got before me. So I agree with Councillor Purdo-Haran. I'd rather have another look at this PNR and recommendations full council.
Okay. We're deferring to P&R.
Well, do you want to have a formal vote on that?
Yep, I'll go through that.
Okay.
Councillor Bird.
Yes, I'm in favour of it going to PNR.
Okay. Councillor Leach.
Yep.
Councillor Lewis.
Yes.
Councillor Mosper.
Yep.
Councillor Purdew-Haran.
Yes.
Councillor Shelton.
For.
Councillor Stapleton.
Yes.
Councillor John Stockwood.
For.
Councillor Maureen Stockwood.
For.
Councillor Wallace.
For. You're losing your voice.
Councillor Williams.
For.
Thank you.
Item 20, Witchwood Road Play Park. To note the commencements of the works for the new play park on 10th of August 2020. Do you have any speakers, or do we just note this?
I'd just like to say thanks. Thanks for everyone for supporting it. Great news. It took us a while, but we've got there with the second one.
Okay. Yeah. So we note that then.
Yes, thank you.
Item 21, the Rural Market Towns Group. To consider the invitation from the Rural Services Network to join the above group free of charge until the 31st of March 2021.
Never look a gift horse in the mouse.
I'm sorry, Councillor Wallace?
Never look a gift horse in the mouse. I would support that. I move that we accept the invitation.
Me too.
Councillor Leach, any further speakers?
Well, Mr. Chairman, that is one of the documents that I was unable to print. When I pressed the print button, it came up with a lot of computer code that I couldn't understand. But any invitation, I suppose, is worth. I should really abstain, but I think I will probably say yes, and on the basis that other people have been able to read it and think it's a good idea.
Okay. Do we need a formal vote on this, or can we just accept it?
I need to send us there.
It's seconded by, I think it was proposed by Councillor Wallace and seconded by Councillor Leach.
Yep.
So, are we okay to accept that?
Yes, accepted.
I would have thought you don't need a vote, surely.
Accepted it then.
Great.
Consultations. We have one from the Borough Councils and the City Council regarding the strategic plan, the Greater Nottingham Strategic Plan. Councillors are encouraged to make their contributions before the end of the consultation on the 14th of September 2020. And for B, we have the Nottinghamshire Association of Local Council new constitution. And that consultation ends on the Friday the 4th of September, and councillors are again encouraged to make their personal contributions according to the details provided within the appendices. Anybody wish to speak?
No.
No. We note those then.
Yes, please.
Thank you. Item 23, to resolve that in the view of the confidential nature of the business about to be transacted, the press and public be excluded for the remainder of the meeting. Do you have any we'll move to vote. Do we need a formal vote on this?
Yes, we'll do that just to be sure.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Proposed by me, seconded by Councillor Purdy-Horan. Can we have the formal vote then, please? On moving to
Councillor Bird.
Yes.
Councillor Leach.
Yep.
Councillor Lewis.
Yes.
Councillor Moskva.
Yep.
Councillor Purdy-Horan.
Yes.
Councillor Shelton.
Or
Councillor Stapleton.
Now you know how I feel when I get a sore throat. Yes.
Councillor John Stockwood.
For.
Councillor Maureen Stockwood.
For.
Councillor Wallace.
For.
Councillor Williams.
For.
Thank you.
All right. I close the session at 9:39. Public session is now closed and the meeting now proceeds to the confidential business. Thank you.